Hello world and welcome to episode 25 of The Top Split. I'm your host Alex McKellar, and joining me today, well, first off, we're back in multimedia style, audio, video, the works. Last time we did this was a lot of fun, not the least of which was doing the premiere style experience on YouTube and Twitch, where I was able to interact live with the audience when we ran through it, so when the video aired, so it was good fun. But we're back at it today, and I'm pleased to welcome back today one of our regulars here on the Top Split. It's Mr. Benn Snell, aka Bogan, back, and welcome back, Ben.
Hello. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, I think
Hopefully you unmuted me.
Yeah, I did unmute you. We're all good. So you and I have had some pretty good racing in recent times. It's been a lot of fun. How's the racing for you been this week?
Yeah, it's been pretty good. Road Atlanta is a fun track. It's nice to be on a fast, flowy track again after all the technical circuits that I suck at the start of the season. So I've been enjoying the racing so far, yes.
Yeah, we've had some pretty good tussles lately. I've been really enjoying them, so thank you for that. But one thing that was a bit of a highlight for me this week was you put up a video, which I'll pop up on the screen. Hang on, let me find the right button here. I'll pop up on the screen now, and hopefully the volume will be okay at the same time, of you doing some of your drifting. Now,
yes.
Tell us a bit about this one, mate.
Oh, so this is, I went out for a shakedown. I just bought this car a few weeks ago. I'm taking it down next weekend down to Mount Gambier for Drift Challenge Australia. So I decided to take it out, give it a bit of a whirl, see how it goes, how it drives, and got a little bit of helmet cam footage, which is good because I set it up as the the stream starting thing on the Twitch now, and all that stuff. But yeah, basically went out, gave it a crack. I just wanted to see how the car drove, how it felt, see what would break, and thankfully nothing did break. So I'm pretty much ready to go. Just changing a couple of small things, and gonna go have a blast down in Mount Gambier next week.
Yeah, nice. We're watching you. So this is at your local track, and you're...
Yeah, so this is Malala, yeah.
Yeah. And can I tell you, apart from the flowing locks and beautiful beard in the breeze that I'm watching here, right? Obviously open windows and everything. I've not sort of looked much at the drifting as a sport or as an activity. But I tell you, I feel like you're giving the car a flogging there, mate. I said to you during the week, the car just sounds like it's about to rip out of the engine bay sort of thing.
Yeah, it's a very high wear rate on the car with a sport like this. Obviously, like, you use a lot of tyres and a lot of fuel and stuff like that because you're always pounding on the engine. But a lot of tuners and stuff, like, because all these cars, obviously, you tune them, you put bigger turbos on them, bigger injectors and bigger fuel systems, bigger radiators, everything to try and minimise the wear on the engine. So when you get it tuned, you go to the tuner, it's like, look, this thing's going to spend a lot of the time high in the rev range. It's going to cop a lot of, like, high throttle abuse up top. So, like, you get them to pull a bit of timing out top, just try and make the car safe up high. And yeah, I just saw myself put my thing back up. But yeah, so it's basically, yeah, you try and minimise with the way the car's set up, with the tuning and stuff like that, the amount of wear. But also driving style helps. Like, I know a lot of guys that will not do what I do and just sit the car on limiter. They'll actually, make sure the car's just sitting in the fat of the torque band, and their cars last a lot longer than mine generally do.
Fair. How often do you get to do something like this?
At the moment, we're actually having an issue now. If you can, I had a video up on YouTube of, like, a whole bunch of runs, and I think that's the one you're watching now.
Yep.
There was only 12 cars at this practice night because there was another event happening on the same day out at Taylor Benn. So we have actually an issue at the moment where we have too many events and not enough people to actually go out and drive all these events. So we're looking at 2 or 3 events a month at the moment if you want to drive every event.
Really, that's a fair opportunity. So it sounds like it's going all right at the moment. But this is like a practice day sort of thing. How different to this is it when it comes to competition day sort of thing?
Oh yeah, so this is just a straight up practice day. You go out, you have 4 half-an-hour sessions just to basically do whatever you want to do on the track. Within reason, obviously you want to drive the same direction and keep the car on the track, not do anything stupid. But when you get to an actual competition day, the format is a lot more stringent. Obviously, it's a full day rather than just a small portion of the day. But like you go in the morning, you have your morning practice session, but you won't get as many laps because there's more cars out there trying to vie for track time. Then you go in, you have your qualifying session, which is like same as qualifying, like in a race. So you're going out just by yourself, and instead of being against the clock, the judges are just watching you run by yourself and giving you a score relative to how you perform to their criteria. And then from there you go into what you would call the racing, which is our elimination battles, and that's where you'll see drivers competing against each other head to head, trying to knock each other out. And then depending on the competition, sometimes they'll have expression sessions during the downtime and expression sessions after the event, which is just the same thing, just going out with all your mates and letting loose.
Yeah, nice. Now the wheel work, mate. You're throwing that thing around like an 80s video arcade machine. The wheels just spinning like a top there. Is there like something that you have to set up in the mechanics of the car to make that the case, or is it just the fact that it's the car's set up loose, or like how does it come to be? Like I can't imagine spinning the wheel on my car with that amount of freedom sort of thing.
Yeah, so you run a really high caster setup in these cars, so usually anywhere between 6 and 10 degrees caster, which is a very high aggressive self-steer. So what happens is when the car snaps to the side, the wheels always want to point straight. So if you let the wheel go, generally it'll go kind of where you want it to do. And then it's just about learning the timing of when to grab the wheel and when to make small corrections.
Because your wheel work is so
fairly similar.
Your wheel work is so loose, like you're barely touching the wheel, and yet the car's flicking around like nothing else. It's quite interesting to. Do you call that a tank slapper or what? Yeah, it's that.
Yeah, hurt me thumb doing that.
I wondered because you've got the spokes of the wheel there. Is that a common thing to do? Catch your thumb in a wheel like that?
Oh yeah, it can be a thing that happens quite regularly.
Yeah,
if you're not careful.
You got any lefty fellas out there, like as in you call lefty because they lost their hand or something, or it's not quite that bad?
No, it's not that bad.
So, how do the skills in this translate to the sim, for example? I mean, I've seen you throw some cars around after races and what have you, but do you find the control that you develop in something like that would that translate well to iRacing?
It definitely helps in terms of one, being willing to let the car slide. If you've never done it before, it's a very big step to get into letting like the rear of the car go. But again, it is just learning what a bit of wheel movement will do in terms of and not so much the wheel movement, it's actually more the footwork. Of how your footwork affects the car's attitude when we talk about having the fourth pedal moments and stuff like that. And that's where one of those things where I go to where a lot of you guys will fourth pedal to save a slide. I'll be dancing on the pedals trying to not lose as much speed, which sometimes works and sometimes I end up in a walk.
Fair enough, but I don't know about you, but I found the throttle control is a big deal for me in terms of how I rotate the car and what have you. Is it the same here?
Yeah, definitely. So I wouldn't say 90%. You say that you're watching my hands look quite loose. It's because my feet are actually doing a lot of the work. So it's a lot of between, not so much the brake pedal, but a lot of the throttle and clutch modulation is where you get a lot of the attitude change in the car.
Yeah, nice one. And I've seen you a bit on Assetto on your streaming. Is that better set up for drifters? It seems like there's a drift mod or something in that, yeah?
Yeah, so Assetto obviously has very big mod support and stuff like that. So pretty much everything you see drift related on Assetto is all user created content. So it's user created tracks. It's basically every track in Japan is a version of on Assetto because obviously Japan and drifting go hand in hand. So a lot of Japanese cars, a lot of Japanese tracks and stuff like that on Assetto, and that's obviously where everybody is there doing it. Like, you're not going to get a drifting league on iRacing because there's just not that support behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. You've been doing a bit of real life commentary for the, I suppose there's a mix of it.
It is comedy though, let's be honest.
for the local drift events. How's that been going?
Yeah, it's good. So that's one of the reasons why I actually picked up with the streaming. And you can, of course, follow me on twitch.tv/Snellovision.
Snellovision is a good follow there.
Snellovision, yeah. And basically, I picked the streaming up to help with talking, because as you can tell, sometimes the talking doesn't quite come out my mouth right. So learning how to talk and continue conversations and stuff like that has definitely been something that I've picked up with the streaming and the commentary. And it's been good fun, so I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, mate, from what I've seen, it's going gangbusters, so that's great. But so how do people see some of this action covered by your commentary, mate? Where do people find that?
So you can head to Facebook, to the Drifting SA, so South Australian Drifting, so facebook.com/Drifting SA. So, and we will be having a competition on the 7th to the 9th, I believe, of November, so in 3 weeks' time, out at Tailem Bend. So you'll be able to watch the live streams there, and you'll hear my glorious voice all over those. So watch at your own discretion.
Nice, and that's the same place they go if they want to actually come out and see what's going on track and maybe get involved?
Yeah, so of course, if you do want to get involved, especially South Australians, we can help you a lot with that. Of course, if you are from interstate and you do want to get drifting, we can always point you in the right direction to which organising body will help you in your relative states.
Yeah, nice one. Looks like we're winding to a close there, mate. Well, that was, like I said, that was one of the highlights of my week, checking that out. And it was really nice to see what you get up to, because we talk about it a fair bit off and on when we're on Discord and what have you during the week. So it was good to see that. So thank you for sharing that. It was interesting, and it was and thank you also for giving us some insights into that hobby that you've got going there, man. Although is it an all-consuming hobby, do you think? Because, it sounds like there's a fair bit involved.
Yeah, that's where all of my money goes, and thankfully I'm single, so I'm allowed to spend all of that money.
Nice. All right. So thanks for that, Ben. But back to iRacing. We're about halfway point nearly in the new iRacing season. We've had some time to look at the new season build, of course. I hunted around again with the video content this month in mind for some clips that might encapsulate some of the key elements. And first off, I thought we might take a look at Average Grug is the stream that I took this from. Just check this guy out.
Hold your line. I have to unmute it. Hold on. Give me 1 second.
Clear left, E7.
There you go.
Oh.
So we just got a Skippy race at Brad's. Oh, cheapers. So
I hope that wheel was real and it wasn't a ghost one.
Yeah, I think it was. So what I'll sort of look at this, you've got the new damage model is obviously the thing that I'm sort of focusing on here, folks. You've got a guy and a Skippy. We'll just go back and play it again. He's at Brands Hatch, which would have been in week 13. It's Brendan Skinner. Average Grug is his Twitch channel name. He's come around the first corner. There's skippies and parts flying everywhere, but then he gets pretty much hit in the scone, or the front of the car at least, with a wheel, which is, people will be talking about being hilarious and all the rest of it, but it's, I don't know. What are your thoughts? We've had about half a season to get used to this new model. How do you feel about it at this stage, man?
It makes the first lap a lot. Oh, hang on a minute. I've got to mute myself again. It makes the first lap a lot more hectic now, for sure. So, especially someone like me or DJ or other people that are fond of doing the no quali races, when you're coming through a pack of cars, and like last season, there'd be a bit of carnage or whatever. But obviously, you're just looking at the cars, and like if you can make it past the cars, you're all good. Now you're looking for cars and flying bits of debris, and like got to watch out for cones now, because cones will make a mess of your car. So it's definitely added a lot more to the immersion but also added a lot more to the ways you can end your race.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I agree with you in so much as it's a closer step to reality, right? It's the next step we could have taken, and I think iRacing in terms of the visuals have done a great job, and the fact that I think last episode we watched a wheel bounce off 3 different cars, right? Which again is funny. I do get worried about the netcode implications that we've seen so far. I think it's improving, certainly in week 13 and the early stages before a couple of patches came through, the netcode stuff and the impact that it had when it comes to, false contacts where bits fly off and hit either the 2 cars or how many cars involved, or maybe flies back and hits a car that wasn't involved in the incident, and then suddenly we've seen the elastic wheels rejoining the original car because it was a phantom contact, and yet the impact of those cars, those pieces making contact with other cars has occurred as well. So, the droid self-correcting damage on phantom contacts is one thing, but the impact on other cars has been pretty real, right?
Yeah, it definitely highlights the issues that we still have with netcode, especially in the Skip Barber, the way it's an open-wheel car, and those netcode contacts do make such a massive emphasis on where and what you touch. So if you think you're touching a bit of wheel to side pod or something like that, but the game thinks you're wheel to wheel because it's just the way the netcode works, and all of a sudden there's bits and pieces flying everywhere, it is such a massive change to what it was however long it was, 6 weeks ago or whatever it was before we came into this new damage model.
Yeah, that's it. It is a big change now. I agree. And look, I think it's a work in progress. It's an iteration at the moment. Obviously, Skippy continues to be the beta testing grounds for it. So, we'll see what's to come in the later builds. These things always improve incrementally. Now, next thing I had on my agenda was one of the other elements that's obviously popular, and it's one of the new elements has now gone to some of the other seasons, but this is one of my favourite Skippy streamers, or it's actually an F3 race, and we're just watching Heike 360. He's actually on board with Gerardo, who's another guy that Skippy streams fairly often. He's in an F3 race this time though, and we're watching so much carnage going on in this first lap. This guy's essentially, Gerardo, who's a pretty good driver, it has to be said. He started last, but listen to this bit. In 4 corners, he's gone from last to third. In 4 curvas, in 4 corners. Quite amazing. Now, so my thoughts on this one and why I sort of brought it to our attention were a couple of things. The new tyre model came into, besides the fact that Gerardo's driving it, it's a pretty good clip of someone carving through the field. I mean, you were talking about last to first just before. New tyre model got introduced to F3s, but we still have it, of course, in the Skippies. Whoa, it has such a big impact on first laps, mate. What do you reckon?
Yeah, cold tyres. It's not like it used to be when you said cold tyres. Oh, yeah, no worries, give it 3 corners and my tyres will be up to temp. And then I've got my fastest 3 laps of the race and then it falls off afterwards. Now I'm going to die for the first lap and a half, 2 laps, depending on the car and the track. Then you've got the car builds up for another couple of laps, picks up, peaks, and then actually starting now, then we're getting the tyres that are starting to fall off towards the end of the race, especially in like F3s and stuff like that. So it's really cool to see the way the dynamics changed. It's just the aggression and the level of the grip change throughout the race is still something that's a little bit hard to manage for some people.
Yeah, hard to manage is generous in some cases. Plenty. Yeah, I know. That. I thought I'd point that out. You were being polite. Look, it happens. We all get caught out in some respects on those early laps now, which is fine. The best of the best will get caught out as well. I mean, I remember seeing in one of the 2K Cups recently, Johnny Gindy warming up his tyres in pole at New Hampshire Oval. They did the oval layout. And he spun out at the front of the field, put it in a wall, and was desperately, on the warm-up lap again, he was desperately trying to get back to the front with a busted car so that the People didn't get a black flag for passing the leader before the line, sort of thing. So it did have a big impact. And like I say, the best of the best can get caught out. I wanted to look at this other clip as well, just on that point. Let's have a look. This is from Brook Racing's Twitch channel. It's Benjamin Brook. He's just coming around he's on a warm-up lap and a TCR. Cold tyre, and the bloke in front of him exit stage lefts into the wall, and it's exactly what. But check out his deadpan as you like. Freebie, something about that corner at Road Atlanta. Freebie, bloke doesn't even bat an eyelid. No woohoos. I've got a freebie out of that. So it comes on to the topic of warming up the tyres. I've been doing a little bit of warming up of my tyres in the last couple of weeks, just because it seems to be a thing. Nothing nefarious, of course, which is the key word, and we've been through Donut Gate and all the rest of it, but
Gate, everything else.
Yeah, that's right. What do you make of warming up the tyres? Do you do it, mate? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely weave. I'm a fond fan of getting up a little bit of speed, hucking the car sideways and locking all four wheels just to generate some extra heat. That's just the way I do it. Obviously, I don't want to be doing donuts or anything stupid like that. So it's something that's done in the real world to an extent. Like if you watch, like say Bathurst just gone, you watch the top 10 shootout, the driver will spend the first half of the lap scrubbing the tyres as hard as they can to generate heat. So it's not, it's a heat thing and a pressure thing, and the effect it has, especially on that first lap, is just too great to pass up, especially when you're fighting for qualification spots where a tenth makes a difference between maybe 3 or 4 spots. Yeah. It definitely makes a difference chucking a bit of heat into the tyres.
Yeah, I sort of haven't been doing it up until recently, but I thought I'd give it a try. I'm terrible at it, by the way. I haven't done anything to face plant into a wall quite yet, but I've come pretty close. I'm finding myself probably closer to the front than I have been. But like you say, the margins are so close that it does make a difference. And I find that the 1 or 2 positions that I might get out of it are strategically very advantageous. It kind of does represent what happens in the real world, though. People do it to warm up. You see it as high up as F1. You see it in all the other categories typically, where tyre temperatures are an issue for them. They do it for a reason, and I guess it brings us one step closer to reality, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's just interesting that the fact we have to do it in the Skippy, because the Skippy does have road tyres, or should have road tyres, whereas the tyres do behave like the way they respond to heat so aggressively. They do act more like a semi-slick compared to a true like street radial. So it's really the only thing I've picked up on is really shouldn't have to be doing it in a Skippy, because the Skippy really shouldn't be affected by heat that much. But it is what it is, and it is what you need to do. And as long as you're not off, doing burnouts and driving around the track backwards and doing stupid stuff like that, I say go for it.
Yeah, nice. Now, I'm going to pause for a moment here to reflect that I've been tooling around in the background. It's the first time we've done the video stuff on Skype, and I've noticed a couple of issues that I'm going to apologise for those watching on YouTube, Twitch and what have you, because I think the sound's been a bit bung. Should be okay now, though. I think Ben's video and audio, at least on the video, might be a little bit out of sync, but we're going to press on, and I'll work on that for next time. But I think there was also dual audio there for a minute, which I'm going to go back and listen to in a sec when we're done, but I'm sure it's going to be shocking. Apologise for that, but look, we're at the 20-something minute mark, I think, and it should hopefully be all good from here, even if the audio might be a little bit out of sync. But let's press on. We live and learn. Let me see. What did I have up next? So that was kind of summary of the couple of new things going on in the skips, the damage model and the new tyre model. I don't know about you, Ben, but I think, and I've said it in a couple of places, I feel like the tyre model's just incrementally got a little bit better each time. I said last time that I feel like the aero was the biggest change this time, that the rear of the car is still quite loose in high-speed corners, like 130R and that, which is still pretty sketchy. But if you look at Road Atlanta this week, for example, it's a lot better through turn 1 than it was like you were literally taking your life into your hands every lap around there last season. This season, first couple of laps, sketchy as. I mean, I went off there a couple of times in my first 2 races this week. Their mistakes uncharacteristic, I like to think for myself, that I don't like to make and I don't typically make, but it does talk to the risky nature of it at times as well. But certainly, I don't know about you, but I think it is an incremental improvement this season. Would you concur?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if it's a placebo effect or if they have actually made some changes, because I think if there are changes, they are undocumented.
Yeah.
But I feel like the same thing. Turn 1 at Road America was pretty much the same as 130R last season.
Mm-hmm.
Like the car was as skittish through both those corners. Whereas this season, Turn 1 does feel a lot tamer than 130R. Like 130R is still a death trap. Whereas Turn 1, especially once you're about 4 or 5 laps in, you can take pretty confidently without risk. I actually found I'm actually washing too wide with understeer rather than oversteer at the moment from just trying to carry too much speed through it.
Yeah, so look, it'll be suiting different people, their styles and what have you, depending on how they drive the car, I think, better or worse. But again, I'd suggest it's a slightly incremental improvement in my books anyway. But moving on, I've set up a little clip. I wanted to talk a little bit about Sunday Night Lights. Of course, that's one of our things here at the Top Split. And I wanted to highlight this lap from the Oulton Park round just gone, and I'll just put it on the screen now. Here we go. And still the hard-charging Gourlay. You can just see him in the background behind these three. Toykala up the inside of the kick. Shows the nose, hugs the tight line. We've got... Oh, he's just managed to hang on around the outside there. Beautiful driver there. Will get the drive out of the corner. Angels fear to tread indeed. But what that's done is it brought this back into a full-on pack of 7. 2 by 2 they go. Who would have thought? Half a lap so far. They've got 2 by 2. We see now Gourlay poking up the nose. They're going to go 2 by 2. Noah's Ark style through. No, they're not. It's O'Fray now. Still up the inside. Toykala. Who would have thought you could go better part of 3/4 of lap 2 by 2, Corey? It's still O'Fray and Toykala on the approach into the final corner now. Witten now having to defend from Gourlay. The red-faced boys are back together with the Milo boys, and it's all happening, Corey, as they've all done it. Nearly the full lap. Amazing stuff.
It's absolutely incredible, Alex, and it is still going. Sammy J holding on what is for the better part of the lap, the outside of the track the entire time. Still managing to hold on to the outside as they're going through turn 1. It looks like he's finally gotten a move made after nearly an entire lap of battling at it.
There you go. That was certainly... it wasn't me commentating live. That was obviously from the broadcast we did this week. But one of the highlights of our SNL season for sure. I mean, I think it could have done with a little more Snell in there, but I thought it was pretty indicative of the racing experience we had at Oulton last week, Ben.
Yeah, look, I'm probably glad that I wasn't there, because I would have been in the middle of that, and I probably would have made a meal of it, let's be honest, with the way my season's been going. So I just let the rest of the Team Milo boys come out and crash into everybody else, and just had the week off.
Look, the big news of the season, I mean, aside from that, right, I mean, that was pretty spectacular stuff, and it really does typify the top end of town when it comes to the type of racing that you can have. Look, and to be fair, you can have that all throughout the field with the right sort of people. So, but I thought it was really a good way to showcase the racing that goes on in the Skip Barber category, and really proud or at least pleased to be able to sort of bring that to people. But you know, thinking of the context of the season so far, I guess the big news of the season to this point has been the dominance of the Redface racing boys, Sasha Gourlay and Julian O'Fray. I mean, both of them have been racing with us pretty regularly since the move to Sunday nights, but this season as a team, and up until last week, they'd taken out all the races so far before Team Milo's Sammy Toykala ended up winning that race. We just saw a highlight of at Oulton Park, and you know, for me, look, that's been great. Overall, our numbers have been down a bit this season across the Skippy category as a whole. To be fair, it's really pleasing to see some of the really strong competitors local and overseas still sticking with us, the likes of the Red-Faced Boys, for example, some of our UK and I regulars in Cat and Edwards and Anderson, they've been coming back and giving us some great racing as well. I think about the numbers this season. I guess the silver lining for the series is that with a couple of notable absences, that the hard-working local guys are getting their shot at the title as well, as it were. So, I mean, we've seen the return of Witten and Henderson, of course. Yourself been there, Ben, the regular top split runners. But we've also had more airtime for people like Mitchell McLeod, our own Paul Beatty, along with a crowd favourite and heart of the team Milo, of course, Mr. Russell Clark. I was really also pleased to see Ben Furhoff back in the mix last week too. So, and sporting his new team Milo colours, mate. But what have you made of the participation so far this season?
I think that hype, that new tyre model hype, has definitely died off a little bit, and we've lost a lot of those high level kind of blow-in drivers, like the guys that you'll see generally in like a GT car or something along those likes, that have jumped in, gone, oh, let's see what this new tyre model's doing with the Skip Barber. And now they've done 2 seasons of it. We had obviously the first season where the car was on rails, and now we've moved to the second season where the car was very loose. And they've gone, oh, okay, iRacing seems to have done an okay job at this. We're happy with it or whatever. And they've moved back to doing whatever they generally do. So I think that's where we've lost some of those really high-level drivers and a lot of the participation in general. So it's good to see, though, that, yeah, it is good to see like guys like Russell and Beatty and Mitchie and everyone like that making it regularly into the top split, getting back into the broadcast. Because I know Russell was a little bit sad about last season, missing out on so many of the broadcasters' races just due to a lower I rating compared to other people.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I guess the other factor might be that, you got a new car in the TCR that we saw before in that exit stage left clip. That's also got the new tyre model, the F3s that we saw Gerardo's run through the field at Interlagos. That car's also got the new tyre model. So I guess, as far as checking that out, that specific element that might have drawn people before has also diversified our user base somewhat as well. I mean, the TCR being a new car would have taken not the shine off it, but certainly taken some of the audience for us as well. But, excuse me, the softs might have been down a bit, but I think the racing's been good. I mean, I come back to the thing that SNL is a community effort. It's by the community, for the community. We seek to build a platform for the local guys to challenge themselves against, some of the best racers from across the world of iRacing in that category. We might be missing some of the overseas guys of the past, but the guys that are turning up are top flight. I mean, you look at Gourlay and O'Fray. I mean, they've been blazing on the SNL scene, but they're also right up there. In some of the other places around. I mean, they're right up there with the best in the 2K Cup. They're up the front there all the time. They're also up there at the front with the US soft race. I mean, I think Gourlay's on top of the official standings overall. So, you add the local guys into the mix as well. We're not short on talent in those terms as well. So, like I said, our softs might be down a bit season, but I think there's almost a bit better balance in it for the local guys too, which were always our first concern, right?
Oh, it's good to see some more Australians in the Australian Instinct of Field race, right?
Yeah, that's
so
right.
that helps that a lot. So I remember last season there'd be maybe 2 Australian drivers in a 20-car field. So it's good to see that we've got really that almost 50-50 mix now of Australians and internationals every week, and like it's just not just the red-faced guys. You got guys like Lee Anderson and Anthony Catt and DJ when he's not banned. Like you've got all of these guys that are in that that mix it up, and it's good to see, especially with Hendo's having a couple of good runs. Mitchie's got like great pace, and like it's good, and obviously with Luke being back more regularly, and Ben Furhoff coming back, we've actually got some Australian guys that are putting it to the internationals, and it's not just a bunch of European drivers and then all of us underneath. So it's good to see that diversifying mix of all these drivers getting together and having such great races.
Yeah, I agree. The balance is a lot better at the moment, and it's been good. I mean, we've had those two guys up the front a lot, but we've had other guys and local guys in the mixed as well, which has been good. Now, I've been doing these broadcasts for a while now, and I'm always thinking about how I can improve them, you know, my commentary, the overlays, that sort of stuff. So I check out other broadcasts from time to time to get a sense of what works for other people that might enhance our shows. So I came across this clip in the last week or so. It's the final stage of a Spanish-speaking broadcast of a TCR race at Road America. It's from a Twitch channel called the Drivers Parade Club. Let's check it out.
Ahí, cuidado, mira Borja, por el exterior ahora con Víctor Lobato.
So we got
Le puede ganar la posición Borja.
classic stages of this race.
Borja, y ojito con Borja que le puede ganar
4
también.
cars in
La
a battle for the
posición a Víctor
lead,
González,
come around the
exterior.
final
Ojito
corner.
con el alien que va a hacer cosas de alienígena. Salen en paralelo. Cuidado que esto puede ser para Borja. Están pegadísimos. Y viene Yago
Look
Martínez.
at this, it's
Pero
like
qué convoy tenemos ahí.
like a
Parece
traffic
que
jam
va a
on the
ganar.
Harbour Bridge or
Puede
something.
ganar esta batalla. No.
Crazy.
Es para Víctor
Bam.
González que queda cuarto. Vaya final de carrera.
Amazing
entre
finish.
Cuarto, quinto, sexto y
So
séptimo.
just for those of you at home, what you had there was 6 cars, well, the 4 of them were fighting for the lead, but they were coming through the final stages, and they were Noah's Ark style 2x2 pretty much throughout. And then in the final stages, you had these 4 cars in the space where maybe, you know, 2 or 3 of them should have fit. But how good was the commentary? The bloke was, he was passionate about it. I'm starting to wonder if I need to work on it, Ben. What do you reckon?
It's a lot of hype in that. It's something you see a lot with the Spanish broadcast as well. Like, watch the difference between an English football game and then watch a Copa League game or a Spanish game or something like that, and just the amount of intensity that the commentators have. I think it's just part of that culture, is just the hype and the energy in the way, not even in the way they broadcast or the way they commentate, just the way they speak.
Yep.
It's always very fast, very energetic.
Yeah, look, it is. I read some stuff, and I've been working on bringing some colour to the commentary, and I know I've had a bit of a rough ride with the sound for this episode, and I'm sure I'll find that out when I look back over it. But I found he might need to get a compressor going so we don't blast our ears. Although he didn't do too bad, really. It wasn't too much distortion. But you're right. The passion that they bring is pretty inspiring, and it's something I've been working on, man. It's good to see others get into it, but it's good to see other people enjoying their race. I mean, there were some familiar names that I saw in there from the Skippy community, Borges Arzo and Ade Lopez, who was a pro driver, used to come and race a few races with us as well. He was in there. He looked to take it out, actually, from what I could tell. But you're right, I really like the passion and the flair that they bring. There's so many of them in our category at the moment, and I feel like there's a bit of a change in the perception of it too, and I hope we're contributing to that, because it hasn't always been the best perception of some of the Spanish-speaking guys and from the different clubs, but I think that's improving, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. Especially now, especially in the Skippy community, for sure. The amount of Skippy drivers, and there has been a perception about the Iberians, about the style of driving, and we do know their style of driving is very passionate. It's not just the way they speak. So they had was it that race at Okayama? We watched. There was about 6 or 7 of them. They're all mates. They're all in the same Discord because we found the Twitch stream. And they're banging and bashing, and like they ended. I think half of them end up killing each other, but they're enjoying it. And it's not they're not doing it out of spite. They're doing it because that's the way they want to race, and they like to race that close and that aggressively. So I think it's a combination of maybe those guys starting toning it back a little bit and realizing that the rest of the world doesn't race like them. And the combination of us understanding a little bit better and maybe going, I'll leave a bit more space around. So, and of course, they're on the other side of the world as well. So we got to think about netcode and stuff like that. So I think it's a bit more of a mutual understanding, and a bit of melding of ideas has helped with that a lot.
Yeah, and you know what else I think helps is the fact that there is a lot more streaming going on. We can see what people are doing. We can see they're not driving like, you know, people sometimes thought they were driving. They were actually, you know, having that first-hand insight into what they're doing and perhaps sometimes what they're thinking really helps as well. And can I tell you, there's takes all sorts, and in every club there's going to be a mix of different standards. I mean, I drove with an ANZ bloke during the week who, oh my gosh, I'm not going to name names, but far out, I didn't want to be anywhere near him. But you know, then you get that full mix. You get that spectrum of guys that you really want to race with. And I had a race last week at Alton Park with Gerardo, who we saw in that F3 clip earlier today. And it was one of several races. You and I had a couple that I just walked away from. Win, lose or draw, I didn't care. Just the racing was outstanding. Now, I raced with him nose to tail for, you know, the full extent of the race. We were up in front going for 1 and 2. Similar pace, I think, and the racing was just spectacular. And it wasn't. He was racing really smart and really skillfully. He didn't. You know, and I'm not just talking about sitting back and waiting till the last couple of laps. We traded places. We had that ongoing conversation, that non-verbal conversation that you have with a driver in another car, where, you know, where you place your car, or, you know, if he makes a small mistake, I place my car and say, hey, I'm going to go by here because you made enough of a mistake and I've got to run. All those sorts of elements were there. And when it came down to it, we went side by side through the final series of corners, and he pit me on the line. And it wasn't anything other than I was beaten, I think, by a more skillful driver on the day. Really fantastic experience, and again, representative of you know, the talent from the Spanish-speaking community as well. And he'll be someone that gets added to my list of people that I really love driving with. So, you know, it takes all sorts to make up this mix that we're in. So congratulations to him, and to, I've said it a few times lately, there's a number of streamers, and he's one of them actually. He has a stream, I think it's Gerardo, I can't remember I should...
R70.
Gerardo, R70, good. And I think it's bridging some gaps, some cultural barriers and what have you, and the racing's been great. So that's been a lot of fun as well. So on that note, on that positive note, which is always good to finish on, that might do us for this edition of the Top Split podcast. This will be going up on the usual audio places, of course, and you know, places like iTunes, Google Play and the like, as well as the topsplit.com website. I might just hit, where is it? Where's my music? There it is. I'll get that going. We'll also do a video premiere on the Top Split YouTube channel and the Top Split TV on Twitch, of course, so keep an eye out for that, although I'm a bit sketchy on how the audio is going to be, Ben. But for now, mate, thank you for coming back and joining me for this episode. I'm liking these video ones. If I can get it quite right, I'll be looking to go back to a monthly format, perhaps like this. So although work has me a bit under the pump, so I'll do my best. But Ben, mate, tell the folks at home where they can find you this week.
Thank you very much for having me, Alex. You can, of course, find me at twitch.tv/Snellavision. I'm not going to try and spell it because I'm terrible at it, but just think of my name with Ovision and it'll work out for you.
And
sorry, mate.
No, I was just going to say they can see your drifting on YouTube as well. Just Benn Snell on YouTube, isn't it?
Yeah, if you search for Benn Snell, it'll pop up. If you want the URL, it's Waffleco, I believe, youtube.com/Waffleco. But I will be uploading some more drifty stuff and maybe some iRacing stuff on there as well. But other than that, pretty much just watch me on Twitch, follow me on Instagram at Boganzoku. You can watch me yell at people in traffic because that's all I do. And basically, yeah, that's about it, really.
Beautiful. And of course, I'll put some details up of where they can find you for the Drifting SA stuff as well. I'll put that in the description of the podcast. But for now, folks, that's about it. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the podcast, our second in the multifaceted multimedia world. That might do us. But please make sure you like, subscribe, and follow, and all the usual things on the socials that I will leave in the description of the podcast below. It really helps us promote, I should say, this great hobby that we love. And you can reach us in all those places that I'll list below. But until next time, on behalf of Benn Snell, I have been your host, Alex McKellar, and you've been listening and maybe watching the Top Split. Ciao for now.